All right. Good morning, everyone. Looks like everything works. Yesterday, cyber attack. I don't know. There's all kind of issues. I couldn't stream live, so I just recorded and put that video out with Jeremy Taggart and Tyler. But good morning, everyone, to tuning in. But I got the one and only Brannon Potts back. So, morning, Brannon.
Morning. How are you?
Good, good. I'm glad everything is working today. So we should have a lot of fun. This is going to be like our Tuesday regular, hopefully. Unfortunately, Cody Davis, who's supposed to be on Mondays with me, well, not unfortunately, he got married over the weekend. So that's
He's got some other priorities this
yes,
week.
yes. I was kind of upset. I was like, I thought I was at the top of the list. But anyways, yeah, let's catch up with Brandon. And I think today we're going to dig into kind of optimization, how to optimize your portfolio in a sense. Is that kind of the gist of it?
Yeah, it's all of that. It's from how to optimize it, how to all the different revenue streams, not the down and dirty of property selection, but just once you've gotten the properties, how to take it in the different phases. And I was working on this, coming up with 4 phases of real estate. And so bear with me. So the first one is actualize. So all of them end with IZE, actualize. We've seen a lot of people that watch the game but don't make it actually happen. And so first phase is actualize your plan, and that is getting into the game, buying the real estate. And what we also know is it's not passive initially. Yes, we all get into owning real estate investment properties. It takes time to make it become more passive. It'll never be perfectly no work involved, but a whole lot less over time. And I know there's a lot of people even in our group that have purchased real estate in the last few years, and it's still more active investing. But understanding that is part of the process, and we talk about that first, especially the first 5 years, suck, and there's a lot of work involved. But staying focused on, we know that up front that it's going to be work, but over time you get to get the rewards, the fruit of your labor, and that's at the end. So the first one is actualize, getting into the game, buying the properties. The next is to stabilize the properties, and then the third phase is optimizing the properties. And then the final phase, it's at the end, is utilize those properties to to enjoy that financial freedom, where that revenue is being utilized to pay the bills and enjoy that freedom. So what do you think, Mark?
I love that. But what I do want to say first is you're talking about getting into the game, talking about game. I just want to remind everyone
Yeah.
that the Bears did win this weekend. So we're on a 4 game winning streak. So for those of you, this is what I was actually going to put on the screen yesterday, but because of some cyber attack, but I had to save it for today. But just want to let everyone know the Bears did win. So they're on a 4 game winning streak.
Yeah, remind
Um,
everybody because they might forget about the Bears.
Whoa, whoa, hold on. Let's get back. Okay. So I want to discredit Brandon right now because he's a Cowboys fan, kind of. So
Yeah.
now his people aren't gonna pay attention to as much as what he says. Um, but
But
no,
hey,
I
even though they lose, everybody still pays attention to them.
that is true. That is true. But yes, I think this is a great topic because the funny thing is that I think a lot of people in their community um, are kind of in that first 5 years, right?
Yes.
So there's a lot of people that are ahead of us, a lot of people just getting started, especially in the school community. But there is a good group that I think is right in that 4 or 5 year period, and some people are even considering quitting. I don't know if that's the right way to put it, but they're not sure if this path is really making sense after so many years, right? So like Frank, old guy REI, he did put out a short or reel on YouTube recently. But yeah, he's going through some struggles, definitely. But I think he realized it's just part of the process, right? So That's what you don't hear a lot. Like I think you touched on, you don't hear a lot about that on social media and what.
You're
But yeah,
right.
let's
They
dig
only
into
talk
that
about the
phase
win.
one though. Yeah, let's dig into that
Yeah.
phase one.
If it were easy, if it really was easy, everyone would do it. And because it's not easy, that's why there's just a few of us that get the reward. And I would remind that to everybody when you're pushing through and it's hard, you're thinking of that person. I'm talking about that analogy of you're digging in your field, your territory that you've taken, and you're right at the edge of where that diamond mine was. If you'd have just stayed with it and dug a few more shovels of it, you would hit those diamonds. Those first 5 years are kind of a lot like that. Is you're digging, you're working hard, you're making those acquisitions. You never feel like you turn over to where the cash is really rolling in yet, because you're not only are you buying your first ones and working hard, but you're also acquiring new ones, and all your cash that you're saving up, you're doing it right. You're not spending that cash, you're using it for your next acquisition. You never feel like you're getting ahead. And I think of the principle, it happens slowly, then suddenly. And that's what happens with greatness. Is it feels like it's taking forever. It's really slow, it's really hard, you're never seeing that progress. And then bam, there's this hockey stick launch. And that happens typically at that 7 to 10 years, because you have multiple levers that you're pulling, that you can pull, and it just rolls over. And we're all in that phase, of that early phase, where it's hard. And I know Frank's going through some hard times. I know there's some others that are having some challenges. It's We're staying focused. We're believing there is light at the end of the tunnel. And Michael, Matt, Dion are proving there is light at the
Yeah, so what I want to kind of touch on too with this phase is I think the Joe V's here, so quickly I need to do this real quick. So
end.
since he is here, I need to show this because Joe is a Packers fan. So I just want Joe to remember that the Bears are on a 4-game winning streak. But yeah, I think what I do want to touch on is, so Thursday, Kyle Dorn is probably going to be joining me. I'm not sure who else, but Kyle Dorn, if
Yeah.
people don't know, he's been to both One Rental at a Time events in Vegas, but he recently just sold his trucking business and he retired with his rental portfolio and whatnot. So I did talk with him yesterday, and interesting thing though, and I think you might fall in that category also, is for us maybe the what made it a little bit easier to jump in, and maybe our, I don't know if success is the right way to put it, is maybe a little accelerated, is because maybe we stacked cash early, or so we are a little bit on the older. So it's not like we're 20, 21 getting started
Right.
now. So
Yeah.
the position we started from is kind of helped our trajectory slightly. So, but for you, I think you have, young children and you're trying to get them on this path, right? So I think that's the interesting part, is how are you going to help your kids to get started in that, get out of that analysis phase, right?
Right. Yeah. And it's really showing them what's going on. And I sit down with my daughter and son that are still in the house, and I'm walking through the numbers. I talk with them through them, talk about the next phase. Actualize phase is getting into the game. Stabilize phase is once you've acquired some assets. Now you're trying to work, how do I, stabilize? And I talk about football analogy. So here we go, Mark. We have to play both offense and defense. If you only have one side, you're not going to win. So you have to have both. And so let's just say stabilize is the revenue side. And that's playing that offense, is how to get that number. Where should I put, that rents to be, where I'm starting to stabilize the revenue. I think the other side of it, the other extreme, maybe, and I might make some enemies here, but maybe it's that fire movement seems to focus more on the defense side and not as much on the offense side. And I think it takes both. Those that truly acquire the wealth or get ahead quicker, they're focusing on both the offense side and the defense side of both. Let's optimize our revenue, but within the same frame, I'm working on playing defense of working on my burn rate and making sure that I'm not spending all my money, that my burn rate is not bad. I mean, you see companies that even on the stock market where they're trading at a high number, but their burn rate, they're burning through cash. And if they don't change it to more offense and getting more revenue in, eventually they collapse. And that's the same thing on this business is you've got to play both offense and defense. What do you think about that with a football analogy?
Oh, see, Jeff got to go do a plumbing emergency. So good luck with that, Jeff. Thanks for stopping by. But I I totally agree. And unfortunately, the Bears have always been known for defense, right? So it's something that, like you're saying, you got to play both sides of the ball to win.
Yeah.
However, I think the way I look at it is you still need offense no matter what, right?
You got
So,
to have both. Yes,
well, you
absolutely.
need both, but if you just, it's very unrealistic, but you can't win a game with a defense
Yes, you're
not
right.
allowing the other teams to score, right? It'll be 0-0 basically. If you had the greatest defense ever and the offense didn't score, you can't win, possibly.
Well, Dion has mentioned this recently. Um, the OG is even with your defense, you can only cut. There's a finite number of dollars to cut. And in truth, there's always a floor of what absolutely can't be cut. So you can only cut so much. So you're working on both. You've got to have that revenue strong. But today I wanted to talk a little bit about this. I hope I don't step on toes, but I'm hoping I'm opening people's eyes a little bit.
No, absolutely. I told, and then that's why I think it's fun in the school community because there is some of those that are very focused on, and like the self managing side and the efficiencies on that side of things. However, I'm always pushing back where you're spending so much time putting these systems in place when maybe increasing your net worth, increasing your cash flow, acquiring more assets is a better use of your time, right? So
Yeah.
that's kind of, but at the same time, you have to find what your strength is, right? If you're, if like you can't, if like you're saying football, right? If you don't have the personnel to be a good offensive team, and defense is your strength, you are going to try to win or try to dictate the game that way so that you're successful,
Right.
right? So you do got to understand your skill set and what type of tools you have. But for me personally, I think trying to, like you're saying, trying to increase your income, increase your net worth, your assets is a lot going to be more beneficial in the long run, in a sense.
You're balancing all of it. I think of I'm assuming you have played the game cash flow, correct?
Yes.
Okay. So I'm playing it. We have three couples. We're playing it together. And this is where it crystallized in lots of ways. I watched my spouse, my wife plays differently than me. I was working on revenue and acquiring more revenue. My wife was working on paying off debts in the cash flow. And I said, you know what? I need to focus on both. I'm really focused on growing revenue, but what if I reduce my expenses, play that defense? What if I do both at the same time? I think I can get ahead faster. And that's the same thing with owning these real estate investment properties. What if you're focusing on all of it and figuring out putting the correct allocation of time on growing the wealth, growing the cash flow, reducing the expenses? If I'm doing all of it, I'm going to get there that much faster.
Yeah, absolutely. But I think it's also learning what your strengths are,
Your
right?
natural
So
strength.
so
Yes.
that's why, like, Dion, he learns the process, right? He tried a burr or did a burr, and but just to learn the process, but he
Yep.
realizes that this is not for him, or this is not my skill set. For me, it's not worth the time in a sense that he's going to be spending on it, right? So I think that's the other thing, and that's what Jim, the grumpy contractor, also talks about too, right? Sometimes when you're working with contractors, you got to realize their cost is not just the actual work that's being done; it's their experience, it's their time to drive out, pick up the
Absolutely.
materials, right? So I think that's what people have to consider in understanding on what you might be paying for a service is not just that actual work being done. And you got to think about it like, if I was to do it, how much time am I going to be spending do it, and it's going to be taking me away from what my strength might be, right? So
You're right. No, I do the same thing because people have asked me, why aren't you the general contractor on all your builds? And so what I looked at is, in a way, it's opportunity cost. So I'm looking at my general contractor. He has better relationships than I do with all these subcontractors. He has more of them, can push up against it and get the better pricing, but also the priority to get the work done because he works with them on a regular basis. But then I looked at, okay, I'm just going to use an example. So I'm saying, how much do I want to make this year? I break it down by hours and say, what should I focus on? If I want to make, let's just use the example of $100,000. Am I doing $50 an hour work? Let's just say you're working an average 2,000 hours. If I'm doing $50 an hour work, or if I'm doing shuffling the paperwork that I can pay somebody $15, $20 an hour, that's not the best use of my time. So with my general contractor, I'm working on fun. He's doing the build. He's spending about 300 hours on the build, and his actual revenue, he's making about $50 an hour. I'm spending maybe 40 hours on it, and my actual profit from wealth and cash flow, I'm making over $1,500 an hour. So I'm focusing on where I'm best allocated to work on it, because if I'm looking at the big picture, it gives me time to go find more land, to find the next build. That's better use of my time. I'm making more money doing that than getting down in, I can't see the forest for the trees. If I'm down in the trees, I'm spending all that time and it's not done as efficiently from my skills. It's going to take longer. It's going to end up costing me a whole lot more being the general contractor versus me just being the owner and letting the general contractor use their expertise and do their work.
yeah, I think the other thing I see a lot is, and even like interest rates, right? So, people are always trying to get the lowest interest rate, and they're concerned about what the rate is going. They're always checking what the financing rate is, but there's so much other factors to consider. So even like, I'm not saying to overpay to get work done on your properties, but you kind of got to know what a ballpark area is, and sometimes I'm willing to pay slightly more in a sense, so that individual or that contractor or that team knows that I'm not going to be going back and forth with them, nickel and diming them, like, hey, I want this quote for this, and like, oh, what about this? Because after a while, that contractor is going to be like, man, I'm not going to waste my time getting
Absolutely.
these quotes.
Mhm.
You're going to come back, you're going to nickel and dime me for this. It's like, I'm going to just give you this and kind of put you on the back burner. So that's what I'm saying. I'm not saying I'm going to overpay, but
No, I'm there with you, Mark. 100%. 100%. I believe in that because it does pay for the long term of some loyalty to the right people. That, yeah, this time you're paying a little bit more, but maybe another time you're asking for a favor. Hey, I need some help with this. Can you help me on this price just a little bit? It's a team, and it's those relationships. I'm 100% there with you. And I think that's from years of experience. I used to be a little different a few decades ago, and I was pushing for every little dollar I could squeeze out. And now I'm understanding relationships. There's give and take from both sides, but in the long run, you just get a better relationship and get things done better.
yeah, and that's why also, like I said, I'm not always looking for the best interest rate. Of course, I don't want it
We
to
want
be,
a good interest rate. Yes, I agree.
yeah, but it's also the relationship to where I can just I'm on a text basis possibly with this lender, right? Instead of just email, I can just text them in the middle and, hey, I got this deal coming up. Can you just give me a quote or something that I can use, and stuff like that. So I think it's all about relationships. I see a lot of people tuning. Hey, Hugo's here. Thanks for the dollar. What is it called? A super chat? I'm not sure. Um, yes, I got the ads popping up. I got to figure out how to work that out. So if people don't know, I am actually monetized now. So if you're not on premium, I believe ads will pop up on the stream now. But we're trying to get Brannon also up to his watch hours. He's kicking ass in
I'm working
subscriber
on it.
count.
I'm
Yeah,
working
so we're getting him up there now. He's using 6-7 to promote his reels and shorts to see if that helps with the algorithm. But if you haven't seen, he has posted ones
Yes, my
referencing
daughter
6-7.
challenged me Saturday morning to that, so I did it to have some fun. Well,
Grumpy Contractor Jim is saying, I want to know where you're finding employees for $15 to $20 an hour.
I'm in our area. You can get it. Well, I'll just say that for the right skill set. I mean,
Yeah.
higher skill sets, you're paying more, but yeah, it's available.
All right. So I see Ike here. Harrison Trade Better 99 has a question. He says, Brandon, what has been the hardest trades people to source to build your properties? Oh, great question, Harrison.
That's a good question. Now, because I don't source them all, I'll say that because that's my general contractor. But I think the challenge we've had is sheetrock people lately. Has been our bigger one. The beauty is with our relationship, because I have that property management company, I have a lot of subcontractors too. And so every now and then, even with my builder, he texted me the other day looking for some subcontractors, asked if I had any, and I was able to give him a few contractors from our side on the property management side. But lately it's been the sheetrock guys on those latest builds, getting them. But other than that, we've been able to find, what I'm noticing right now is a lot of these tradespeople are looking for work. We've had numerous come by our office. I own the building where I'm at right now. This is a commercial building, and they're coming by asking for work. So we're building, a few extra trades people. We've got, for every different thing we need, we've got 3 different subcontractors that we have, from plumbing. We've got painters, we've got sheetrock people, we've got plumbers, ACE, HVAC. We've got all the roofers, you name it. But that's the one we've had the most challenge with lately. We've gone through some, painters, plumbers, roofer. I mean, we've gone through several. We're constantly turning over, but that's what I've noticed lately. If you're having that issue, we're not right now here in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. We're actually having them knocking on our door asking for work. So we're pushing to get better deals.
All right, before I get to Casey's question, we kind of got a little bit off the initialize phase, but before we move on to phase 2. So phase 1, initialize. How would you tell the difference between being early and being unprepared? We'll wrap phase 1 up with that question then.
Okay. I think early, long as you're looking at, let's just talk the first deal. If you want the first deal really to be a base, let's use baseball now. We're going to leave football. We're going to go to baseball, a base hit or a bunt even. It's getting into that game, because the home run or the grand slam is what you learn by having that first one. And it'll only be that because you're not going to hit a home run the first one. Most likely there's very little chance of that, because you don't know what you don't know. It's getting in the game, learning things you didn't know. That is the home run. So I guarantee it'll be a home run if you strictly learn from it. That's what I'm thinking about.
I love that. So before we get into phase 2, stabilize, Casey is asking a question, Brandon. How much per square foot to build in Austin, if you know? Middle quality, ground up, all in.
I think I've got a pretty good price. I'm not certain it can be gotten down there, but I can give you My actual build price, I'm building at 110 a square foot. Now, when I say 110 a square foot, it's not heated and cooled square footage. I'm quoting that as under roof square footage. That would include the garages and the porches. I'm at 110 a square foot. If I add in the land, I'm building at around 120. I know that's pretty low, and that's why I'm doing so well at it. That's what I'm getting with a local builder here, what we're doing together. And it is a partnership. What we're doing together, we're around 120 all in. And when I say 120 all in, I mean the closing cost for the interim construction, the interest carry for the interim construction, and all the build involved in that. That's 120 a square foot.
Okay, so let's get into phase two, stabilize now. So I would say that's like kind of turning chaos into consistency.
You're right. So stabilize, you're looking at how even, let's say, pricing my rent price. If I'm trying to get max, let's go for the front end. Let's go for the top line number. So if you're trying to get max market rents, do you think you're going to have more turnover? Yes. What if you were to be just slightly under average market rents and you've got somebody staying multiple years? Because you've got to look at your vacancy. I've gone after max market rents. It's $50 more than average, but then I had a turnover and I lost a month. Well, then you've got to add that into your cost. So you're trying to find out, where is that price point on the front end? Do I want to be at max market? Do I want to be at average? Or what if I was just slightly below average, but I had no vacancy for multiple years? You've got to look at the top line revenue and say, is that better? So that's one of the ways. Stabilize also is the expenses, learning how to optimize those expenses. When I first got into my first property, I was paying the water. So there's that expense. And I'm thinking, okay, now I've got the revenue, and now I'm seeing I really shouldn't pay for their utilities. And so we made some changes when the turnovers happened. We were saying we're going to do ratio billing, because I have one water tap. So then per person, per head, we did ratio billing for the water. Now we've added in a landscape maintenance fee. So everybody's paying for this, for the lawn care. So we're trying to stabilize all the expenses. But I'll tell you a little trick that I learned from finance that I think a lot of people don't know. It's called common sizing. Have you ever heard of that, Mark?
I have not.
Okay. So hopefully I hope this is a good revelation for people. So what I do, and I'm going to share this in my speech and I'm actually going to show some numbers. And so they're going to see it on the screen. I am doing a PowerPoint, and I'm going to show us a screenshot. So I'm taking all of my properties and I'm doing the top line revenue, and I'm having them in a column. And I'm taking from the top line revenue and then adding in all the expenses for, property tax, insurance, my allocation for maintenance, CapEx, all those expenses, and if there's any others, and your common sign. So I'm creating a little column down the side of it and saying, based off the revenue, my property tax represents 17%. My insurance represents, let's just say it's 7% of all the revenues, and so on and so forth down. And then I'm looking at every property and I'm having them all with their own columns and what that expense is for that property as a percentage of the revenue. So what it does, and this gets from going from stabilize to optimize, I'm looking at, okay, what should be the expense? And if there's one, say I've got insurance that represents 8% of my revenues, and I have insurance on this other one representing 6.5%, I'm able to zero in on that issue and say, okay, what do I need to do to optimize even that expense to get it more in line with best practice of where it should be? And I'm using Excel spreadsheet to look at expenses based off the revenue and trying to optimize even from property tax. Boy, do I need to go protest my property taxes. Maybe I can get this lower. Or these properties, oh yeah, these are just outside of town, so I'm not paying city taxes. Well, my property tax represents only 9.5% versus in this other city, they represent 17. Maybe I need to buy a few more properties over here. I'm seeing my total return is higher. But if you have that data, you're learning how to even optimize your expenses. And that's both playing offense and defense of where's the rent price? What am I getting for rents in this city even? What are the expenses? What do you think of that, Mark?
No, I think that's all great advice. I think that's the struggle, people have in this phase, right? There's a lot of push and pull going on, right? That you're trying to move forward, but you're also trying to become more efficient and understand your expenses, how to operate things better. So it's that uncomfortable phase. It's kind of like that teenage years, right? Where you're kind of you're not sure what direction you're going in, right? So you're trying to just figure out what's the best way to handle and operate. And I think that's what this community is great for, is because everyone's doing things a little bit different during this phase, right? There's those that are trying to maybe even pivot to like short-term rental, mid-term rental. There's those that are doubling down on just the boring long-term rental things. There's those that they've been in markets now for a little while, like, maybe I need to pivot to a different market. But this phase is definitely that phase where it's very eye-opening, and you're really trying to understand how your business per se is going to operate. But yeah, definitely, like you're saying, playing offense and defense, right? You're trying to maximize revenue, but at the same time, you're trying to learn how to limit expenses, and that's that fine line we're always trying to balance, right? But
Right.
that's also why it's great to have people like other people in the community that may be more tax focused, maybe more self-managing focused. So you can always take different ideas from what they're successful at, right? So like Casey, who is actually, what did he say here? He says, Brannon, I feel good. I will close on Taylor, Texas, 40 minutes away from Austin. 2,400 square foot, 360K purchase price, right? But so he's in California, but he's
Yeah.
I believe it's a new build he's buying.
I think it is. Taylor's going to be growing. I know that area with the I think it's LG or one of those type Samsung or one of those type of companies is building a huge plant there in Taylor.
I do see Chris Webb and Ike here, so I just want to. This is for them also. So there's certain individuals that are tuning in that I just want to make sure they
You just
know
want to
that the
remind them.
Bears, yeah, are on a 4-game winning streak. Uh, but
Well,
go ahead.
I was going to say a little bit more on those using the common sizing. And this comes from my finance background. And I know a lot of us have all different backgrounds, and I listen to everybody too. We're all taking some things from each other, and that makes us stronger. I'm real big on best practices because I used to analyze 100+ companies, and I had to know a little bit about every company, and I would common size all their financials. And this is why it's so common for me. But I would take, let's just go to real estate, a short term rental, and I'm looking at best practices for short term rentals. And then I'm taking common sizing with the expenses off a short term rental or a specific community. Each one can be done based off of whatever that way strategy is, and you're trying to find out. Our measure should not be against ourselves. Our measure should be against best practice. What's the best in the industry? We're measuring, we are all comparing each other. Let's just be honest. We all do a little bit, but we should be comparing against the best of the best because that's what's going to make us better. When I was telling my son, even this morning, I said, when I got into triathlon years ago, and this is just my wiring, I was not saying I wanted to be the best on my street. I didn't even say I wanted to be the best in our town. And I said, I didn't even want to be the best in our state. My measure, I said, I want to be one of the best in the country or I'm not going to do it. That is how I think. When I got into real estate sales, I said, I want to be one of the best teams, biggest teams, highest producing teams in the country. That was my measure. And I was able to attain it both in real estate sales. I was selling over 250 properties a year. I did that for multiple years. When I got into triathlon, I I made the national team. We should all be measuring ourselves against the best, healthily measuring. Don't get down. Say, okay, this is where I'm striving to attain. So I take my numbers, I take my build to rent. I'm measuring against other people in the industry. Am I one of the best? Am I one of the best against Dion? Am I one of the best against Michael? That helps push me to get better.
Well, when your book comes out, then it better do better than theirs, right? But
Oh, I wouldn't do it if I didn't think I could do
but
well.
that's the one thing too. You did touch on it, but for those of you out there that may not know, Brandon doesn't speak on it very much, but he was a national level triathlete, right?
I was on Team USA for a few years,
Yep. So
the
people may
world
not
team.
know that he doesn't talk about it much, but yeah, that's
Um,
the type of competitiveness he does have. Ike does say, "I'd love to see that spreadsheet, Brandon." And he says, "Brandon, do you use a software for management that you'd recommend?"
well, because I have vertical integration, I was very intentional in what I was doing. I knew I was going to own properties very soon, and so what I made the decision back in 17 that I was going to own a property management company. So I worked first on getting my broker's license. I took a step. Even when our sales back then in 17, we were selling 50 plus $1 million a year. I didn't have to do it, but I knew my vision of where I was going. So I started the property management company because I wanted to own the vertical integration. And I was hiring somebody. I didn't have the expertise in property management. I hired somebody with expertise and then began to learn it. We use Appfolio, but it's more of a property management software system for property management companies. And I've been able to learn from somebody that's 20 years in property management that's seen it all and taught me a lot of things on even how to structure our lease agreements and just little nuances that I've learned from her because I don't have to be the most knowledgeable person. I don't want to be the most knowledgeable person in the room. I want to have people that know things that I don't know and want to be around them so that I could learn. But that's the software system we use. And I've learned property management and then learned how to get into properties myself. So 3 years later, I begin my acquisition and I learned the lessons. And I'm going to get into a little bit more of that, of what I learned managing. Right now, we're managing almost 250 doors. I have a good pulse on what's going on in Dallas Fort Worth, but I've seen things that work and seen things that don't. And why I'm doing what I'm doing now is partly because of the vertical integration that I own, and I got paid to learn it.
You mentioned Appfolio. I know probably bigger property management companies do use it. That's kind of what it's
Yeah, it's
designed
pretty
for.
expensive if you're a small operator. It would be
Yes.
too expensive.
Well, so Ike, if you do have interest, I would reach out to Renee, forever landlord in our school community, because he pestered them enough that they allow him to use Appfolio. Because he
Hmm.
reached out to them. Um, they kept telling him, "No, this is not for you. You're not, what I forget how many doors Renee has, but they kind of kept telling him, no, this is for big companies. You don't need this, and this is too much." And Renee kept telling, no, he goes, "I'm in this forever. These are I want to put in." So he wanted a system that he could use for the long run. And I guess they caved in and said, "Hey, Care, you can use it, but we're telling you it's too much for you. But this, it's on you." And but I got to reach out to Renee if you had any interest in that folio, possibly. Yeah, Joe V says his company uses that folio, but he says, "I hate it, but there really isn't anything better." Okay.
It's Yeah, I think all of them have some weaknesses. We've been on a few other ones. I think this is, if you want to call it, the best of the worst.
Yeah.
But I will say it's very user friendly and provides good reports. I can see it. almost reverse accounting. The way we enter it versus the way the owner sees it, it shows it correctly. And I do appreciate that. But getting into some things that I looked at in optimization of expenses. This is where I said I'm going to step on some people's toes. I looked at the property owners that own properties that were lower rents. This is that 800. Let's just use the example of the $800 to $900 a month. We have some of those properties. They're good properties. But what I watched is, if you and I both realize, if you have a water heater go out, if my property's at $2,000 a month and your property's at $800, do they cut the cost by more than half? They don't. So if I've got to I've got to swap out a water heater and it costs me, let's just use the example, it costs $1,400. Well, that represents almost 2 months of your rent. When on my $2,000 property that I'm renting out represents less than 1 month. So the reserve allocation for lower rents should be significantly higher because the expenses aren't much different than my $2,000 a month property versus the $800 a month property. And so I realized the direction I wanted to go was a little bit higher rents. I wanted to be, most of my properties are above $1,800. I have some 2 bedrooms that are at that 12 to 1,400. But I realized with expenses, to optimize my expenses, I needed to go with not too high either. If I went after properties that were 4,000 and 5,000, and we manage a few, I call them executive rentals. They're harder to rent. They're a different product, and they don't produce the revenue versus the assets. So I wanted to optimize the exact price point I needed to be in of the type of properties that both optimized revenue where the market was, the middle of the market, the median market, but then optimized my expenses. Have you ever thought of that?
I swear you must be watching Cody Davis and me on Monday.
Yeah,
But
I
that
hadn't.
so that's actually where Cody's thought process is right now.
Mhm.
So pretty much exactly what you said. He's not against the lower price point rentals. He says there is a space in his portfolio for it, but he is trying to find that sweet spot also of maybe the majority of his units. I believe for his area, he's saying like 1,200 is kind of what
Yeah.
is that makes
Each
sense.
market's a little different where that number is.
But where he's getting that number is the same thought process of you, as if you have these lower rentals, you have a washer that you need to replace or an
Mhm.
appliance or like you're saying, it doesn't the cost of it doesn't change based on the amount of rent they're paying, right? So
Right.
same thing, same thought process, and yeah, it makes a lot of sense. So like you're saying, though, there is, there, like, and then you touched on it too, there's a certain allocation in your portfolio for lower rents, but you are trying to focus the majority possibly in this kind of sweet spot that makes the most sense, where it doesn't affect the bottom line as much because of these expenses or maintenance that come up, that aren't going to get reduced based on what the person's rent is, right?
Right, right. And I learned that from managing others' properties. I realized where I needed to be and made that decision. Okay, this is what I'm going to go after. And I, the beauty was I was getting paid for it as I was watching everybody else's properties.
Where was the question? Oh, Chris Webb is asking, Brandon, from your perspective, what is the hardest thing in that folio? Is it the data entry?
I'm going to share something. I don't do that. I hire people to do that. And so I flat out don't know. I'm managing the big picture, and that's about it. So I have others that do the data entry. They don't complain about it. They were the ones that property manager was the one that brought that system and said, this is what we need to switch to. And she seems to be pretty good with it. The other people that we've hired since then seem to act like it's not too hard for them. I just don't know personally myself.
Let's see. Chris Webb says, would you cap this? For example, if you have 7K in reserves, would you shift back to cash flow?
I would. I think that number, what I'm looking at, and I have not attained this. That's the beauty of our group. We're very genuine, and we'll share our L's as much as our wins. And this isn't just a highlights reel. And I think that's what everybody appreciates. That's where we learn. That's what I like about. I interviewed Mike from Millennial Mike. That'll come out on my channel here in the next few weeks. People want not just the highlight reels. They want to know, we learn from each other's losses. I'm not saying I have a loss, but what I've just determined is I want to get to 4 months of total expenses. And there, I'm not saying I'll totally turn it off, but my ultimate, let's say, ideal dream goal is to be at 6 months expenses in a reserve. And I do call it legacy money, not lazy money. So I am allocating. I'm not quite at 4 months on my total properties, but I'm also growing too. So every time I add a new door, that number gets larger. I'm probably somewhere between 2.5 to 3 months right now in complete reserves. That includes all expenses and the mortgage payments. I'm between 2.5 and 3 months, and my goal is to get to 4 months, and then I might back it down a little bit. In the last 4 years, and I was doing this for a video of mine. I'm teaching on how to underwrite a property, and so I went through that on Saturday, or actually that was Sunday. I've total spent from brand new, and this is another way I've chosen to optimize, is I went with brand new construction because then I could build up my reserves easier over time. In 4 years, I've spent a total of $2,200 total on 12 properties. You can build up reserves really fast spending that little.
Great point. I think that to Jim's point, Grumpy Contractor, he does say, I see the lower price as a starting point. Then, after some stabilization, refocus after a bit of time and experience to other assets.
Well, let me ask this. The question would be, okay, doing that, I don't know the answer to this. So I'm not condemning anyone. I'm saying, if the expenses are higher, do you get ahead faster? I don't know that answer specifically because I don't own them. So if you're doing rentals that are 800 to 1,000, but you need to allocate 25% of the revenues to future expenses, the bottom line number is, it's still better percentage wise than a property like mine being brand new, and I'm getting a cash on cash return of between 12 and 14%, but my reserves are building, and eventually I'll stop doing those reserves or at least reduce them. I don't know. I mean, that's just food for thought.
No, absolutely. I think it comes down to just having that vision and that building a little bit of balance. And like, I think we're touching on it. You were not saying you're only going to focus on this certain price point of rent. You're not going to only focus on Section 8. You're not making your whole
Right.
portfolio short-term rentals. But I think there is kind of that sweet spot. So I think, to Jim's point, I do agree. Sometimes in the beginning, we're going to go for the cash flow or maybe these lower price point, because that's our, like you're saying, that's our initiation into
Yeah, it could
getting our
be. Exactly right.
foot
I
in
mean,
the,
that's what Cody's initiation was.
yeah, and
And
then
he's successful. He's very successful.
well, but yeah, but that's also because now you have these levers to pull and to kind of reallocate things to a portfolio that kind of fits your vision a little bit better. And I think that's all about learning and growing, and like you're saying, optimizing. It all comes into play. And but I think even Zuber touched on a while back on one of his videos, like if he went back and he looked at his portfolio, it was these smaller units, 1 bedroom, 2 bedroom, um, single family homes in his portfolio that are the best producing. And I think the way he kind of looked at or based it on, because you just have these people that stay there for a long
Yeah.
time, a lot of times. So I think having some of that in your portfolio is also super efficient too, because yeah, maybe like when you do have expenses comes up, it's a bigger hit, but you have these people that are not necessarily on a fixed income, but they're in these units for a certain reason in a sense. And a lot of times they're staying there for like 15, 20 years type of things. So the turnover is not there. Um,
And that's why I have made the choice of, because I don't know my full answer. I notice my 2 bedroom multifamily turns over the most, and every market's different. So this I'm just sharing my market, that my turnover on my 2 bedrooms are pretty consistent. What I'm making an adjustment even on this, and some of y'all are hearing material I'm going to be using in February, but it's things I'm learning as we're all learning. This is the home run. It's what you're learning, and you make these adjustments. My 2 bedrooms, I had high turnover. And I said, what can I do to affect this turnover? Is there anything I can affect? So what I've done is began to adjust my rents. I'm lowering them to low average. This is 5 to 7% below market. And I'm testing that out now of what if I'm a little bit lower than market? Will I have less turnover, but my net total revenue for the year goes higher? And so I'm making that adjustment because I noticed my 3 bedrooms, I've literally had one single turnover on the 3 bedroom in 3 years. And I've got multiple threes. But then I'm also adjusting, saying, if I'm going to own 22, and that's what I'm saying is my final number, I'd like to get to a 50-50 split of, let's just say, 11 multifamily units, 11 single family homes. So I have a good balanced portfolio, not so concentrated in one specific type of rental, because I think it'll produce better results. So I'm even managing and trying to optimize. I want 10 to 11 single family homes, 10 to 11 multifamilies, and then inside of that, I want to have on the multifamilies a good split of 2 bedroom and 3 bedroom. 1 bedrooms here, I haven't gone that direction yet. Not saying never, because I'm learning still. But those are the ways I try to optimize.
Chris Webb is saying I have to get you in touch with one of my agent friends in Dallas, Fort Worth. He says they're very good and also not Bears fan. Um, Jim is saying, oh, so Jack, like if you haven't checked out Jack's Business Talk, his YouTube channel, he says him and Brannon did a video a while back, value add versus build to rent or something like that. So
Yep.
there's a video on Jack's channel. Grumpy Contractor Jim says, I always remodel to hold for a long time, keeping maintenance of the property in mind. I would rather put the money up front where I can get most back in a refi and optimizing for future maintenance.
And that's good. So on a remodel, we've seen properties that are remodeled on the cheap. They do it as cheap as possible. Well, cheap has a price I'm not willing to pay. And I've determined that I want quality. Doesn't mean it has to be the highest price, because that's not the right perspective either. It's getting that fine balance. And this is that optimization of the expense. I want to do them. I have done a flip myself because I was literally bored and I wanted to learn it. And I realized that wasn't for me either. But I want to do quality because it pays you back over time. Even on these builds, I don't have an exit strategy. And that makes me build them different. If I had an exit strategy, I might compromise and make it a little bit cheaper because I'm planning to get out. But because I don't have an exit strategy, I'm building these to last for decades so that I can pass these on. And it changes your perspective when you're buying properties with no exit strategy. You look at it different.
I think Chris Webb is getting excited hearing the bell ring. I think he thinks it's like an ice cream truck. But Chris Webb says getting in low and allowing some growth also allows for options down the road. Remember, Zuber wouldn't have got 80 without the 8.
You're right. You're right.
Yeah, I think, and like I said, even Cody Davis, who's my Monday regular guest now, except he did get married this weekend, so we skipped Monday. But yeah, to his point, right? He got what, hundreds and hundreds of doors, right? No money down, a lot of partnerships, whatnot, and now he's trying to optimize, clean things up,
Yep.
and what kind of fits his vision more, right? Yeah, let's dig into the last one. And before we kind of get into maybe Vegas and what you got planned for Vegas, your presentation, I think you have something planned for Friday.
Yep.
But phase four is capitalize, right?
Capitalize or utilize, either one. And that's kind of like what Coach Carson talks about of the harvest phase. It's now you're into financial freedom, and now you're utilizing that cash flow or the wealth to enjoy financial freedom. So once you've gotten to that, finished up with the optimization, you've maximized the opportunity, you've maximized or optimized the cash flow, and now you're getting into, now you're living on it or utilizing it for financial freedom.
Quickly, I do see someone tuning in from your channel. It says fantastic plumbing. Quality is costly.
That's old
Uh,
Dan Finn that y'all have met. Some of y'all.
oh, Dan, I like Dan. He's going to be in Vegas, right?
DJ.
All right.
Yeah.
Chris Webb says you may have already discussed this. Do you have costs written down? Do you have the labor cost down or a range?
I don't have it broken down by labor cost for the builds. I just have each contract subcontractor. I've got about, it's like 75 categories throughout the build process in order of when those bills come due. And then I have it broken down by what that bid is for that property, and then what it actually comes out to, and then what that cost is per square foot. And I will be showing that in the speech. Y'all will see some of that, of how far I break it down, so that down the road, when I'm building a single family versus building a multifamily, it should be in line cost per square foot.
I have a good question for you. I know a lot of people here, we do follow Dion, great resource, but do you believe cash out refis as leverage or as a trap? Like, what's your thought on that? Like pulling equity out of properties?
Man, I see them. I see opportunity for both. Here's what, let's just say you're into the utilize phase or capitalize phase. Cashing out, if I'm in that perspective, if I'm cashing out to use it to buy another one, I think that's an appropriate thing, because you're taking comes from my finance background. You're taking that equity and appropriately putting it towards where it needs to go, into another piece of real estate. You're moving that money to another piece of real estate, and maybe it's optimizing your cash flow. There is lots of principles that's good. The other side I think of down the road is, say I'm at 50%, and now I've paid it down, and now let's just say I've gotten down to it's 30% leveraged, and I want to keep it at 50, but I'm in the utilization phase. All you're doing with that 20% is you're front loading cash flow. You're taking it up front. And time value of money, if you do the time value of money calculation, which I do, I could show that math calculation. It could be good. If I'm paying 5% for that money, and versus, over time, I might need that now. That could be a possible good use, but I'm still getting the cash flow. I go from, let's just say I'm at utilization phase, I'm getting 1,000 a month, and I'm refinancing when rates are down, and I'm cashing out 20%, and I'm not buying anything more. I'm just front loading the cash flow.
Uh, Jack is asking, what is the bell? Is that everyone that when Brannon makes a
That's
great point?
I'm real close to our front door at our office, and you can hear it through the wall.
Jim, the grumpy contractor, says, how much time do each of you spend on content for your channels? Ooh, Brandon, how much time do you spend on your channel, Brandon?
In a week now, I typically only publish one big video a week and a short. I let it happen natural of just what prompts me. I will say I work about a month out with my material. I'm watching other material and it gives me ideas. I literally am writing notes and on using Word documents, and I'm preparing different discussions based off either what I'm experiencing in my property or what I'm thinking about finance wise. I would spend on my normal Thursday videos, I'm probably spending total of an hour, hour and a half, maybe hour and a half, if I take from the time I wrote it, think about it, to filming it, to putting it together, to then put it on, probably not much more than an hour and a half for most videos. Certain ones, maybe a little bit more time. Yeah, I can take one from our school. That thing that I wrote the other day. Um, I've even thought about calling it Deep Thoughts by Brannon Potts, and just starting to do that very consistently of this is my videos on Thursdays. Is that comment, and that comes from Saturday Night Live with Deep
Just make
Thoughts by
it
Jack
just make
Handy.
it deep pots.
But I'm thinking of Deep Thoughts by Jack Handy from Saturday Night Live from the 80s and 90s. And so that's where I came up with that.
Well, we like to talk about leverage in, growing in real estate. So for me, my time is spent here. Like I'll do a live, which is about an hour, a little over an hour. It, the thumbnails, everything. I try to make it simple now. So even if you probably look at this week's live and last week's live, I pretty much kept it the same with Brandon. I might change the title, but I'm just going to use
Right.
the same thumbnail for probably a couple months, maybe change it in a few months. But so that's why it's good now that I have regular people. Like Cody's going to be the same, Brandon's going to be the same. I'll change the title, description, but that'll just be AI. So leveraging now for me is I'm glad Brannon guys come up with topics. And Brannon knows, he just tells me and I'm like, yeah, I'll wing it. Like, so I don't,
Yeah,
I don't
you give me patience because I let natural flow of thought through the week, and then sometimes I come up with it on a Thursday for the next Tuesday, or sometimes I come up with it on Saturday or Sunday. I let it happen.
and I just roll with it. I don't spend a lot of time thinking about it. Like I even forgot what the topic was today until I checked this morning. And then if we don't have anything, if we do need something, I'll always go through school, see what questions are getting some traction in there, and that might be a good topic
Mhm.
to bring up.
Yep.
Or you kind of just go through YouTube. If you go through YouTube Studio, they have like recommendations. You can see kind of what videos or ideas are maybe trending or getting a lot of views. So it's kind of easy, to find topics if you can't think of one. But definitely some people spend more time researching information. So even that, sometimes there's things that I do want to research more. Like
Yeah, and I do a little bit depending on the topic. I'll do a little bit of research too. It just depends. It's topic by topic.
yeah, but yeah, not once you get in your rhythm, it doesn't take that much time, but it does take a little bit of time to find your rhythm and find what works for you and
Yeah.
what's the best way to do it. But I enjoy these, like having people come on because it's easy for me to get content now. So that's why it's easy for me to get reels. I post it, I throw it out there, and yeah. So let's see. Chris Webb does say, great, thanks. I was working on a workshop for our Lynchburg real estate group where I was showing them how to find product costs for repair use using AI, Home Depot, Lowe's current pricing. Trade Better 99 says, Brandon, have you thought or costed out alternative buildings like dome homes or Quonset buildings?
No, I haven't. Mine are just pretty traditional looking builds. So that's the only thing I've costed out. And what I'm doing is I've got for the single family. So I've got a floor plan that I've dialed in, and the principle is it takes about 3 builds to perfect that floor plan, and I would agree because I've built a lot of houses even growing up, and with my wife and I we've built. It takes about 3 builds because every build you think you had it, and then you look at a couple things like I should have tweaked this. I now have my more than my third build. I'm taking that same build and doing it over and over and over again, unless I've got this new builds are now side by side. The only thing we did was change the elevation look, but it's the same floor plan on the inside to hold and protect those costs, because I know those costs. We made sure that even the change in the elevation didn't add any additional cost. It just looked a little different, but the floor plan's the same. But it's also efficient on repairs. If I'm doing it the same way, same paint, almost the same colors every time, same fixtures every time. If down the road, when these are 7, 10 years old and they're having more repairs, I can hone in on issues, or the team, the handymen that I have, or the different contractors, they get used to it. They know what to do. The paint, I have the paint. It's the same paint over and over again. It's an efficiency thing.
Chris Webb says, I need a partner for online content. Dude, I always message you and you're always busy. Jack Jack says, "Ooh, Chair Confessions by Brannon Potts."
There
Kind of
you
like
go.
I'm saying, so I'm saying only Potts, like OnlyFans.
No, I won't do that. Well,
um,
I always joked with my kids. I had one. I said, I should have named you Stew Pots, or you know, or
uh,
smoking pots.
Grumpy Contractor says, yeah, so kind of like real estate investing, you just got to start posting. Yeah, I think that's the easiest way. And then you'll figure out what works for you. And you'll find people that, or if you are going to do like collaboration type stuff, you'll start finding people that, have the same schedules or
Yeah.
whatever. Because you guys have probably seen too. I mean, there's been a whole bunch of people on, they were kind of regular for a while. They've kind of fallen off because of life things happening or different journeys they're going down. But I've gone through a group of regulars, and I think I'm finding my kind of consistent ones now. So, but it's always changing. But you'll find people that will work well with your schedule and what you're trying to do. Do you have anything more on the last phase of things on
I
capital?
think I think that was a good discussion on different ones and perspective. I think we nailed a lot of good material on that. And I was thinking about this. I'm going to be sending this out to our owners. Some of this is good for them to hear.
We'll wrap this side up with Chris's question, and we'll dig into, like I said, maybe a little bit of what you're working on in Vegas, things like that. But Chris Webb says, if I am looking to build, how do I reach out to a builder to see if they will provide accurate pricing and quality? How does this conversation go? And he's making an excuse. He says, Mark, you only reach out to me while I'm at work.
He must be working a lot. But no, so what I did, I knew some of the local builders in our area, and I knew their reputations. But what I wanted to ask them is, how accurate to the number are you? And I said, I need references of previous people you've built for, because I want to hear how close they are in numbers. And the first builder was different. I now have a new builder. The first one he did okay, but I found a better one that fits with me and very accurate on his numbers. One of the things that I always do is I put a number for contingency, especially the first time I'm having interaction with the builder. I've vetted them. I've asked for references, and I'm vetting those people and talking to them too. But even with the build, I'm putting in, if this was the first time I were to build it, I might put 5 to 7% in as a contingency number. And I also know that my numbers for lighting, for flooring, for plumbing fixtures, I'm looking at what they allocated for appliances. You should know those numbers and know, did they allocate enough money for those different things? You can check those things pretty easy with Lowe's and Home Depot, or wherever you're buying your fixtures. You should be able to know what flooring should be. I always leave a little bit of extra room in there, and still have, if I were doing the build first time with somebody, at least a 5% contingency. Hopefully I never use it, Now I've been using this builder for multiple years. We're down to a 1.5% contingency number, and typically we never use it. But that's because we're doing the same build over and over, and that's part of the efficiency to this. And then I have a couple of little spots where I know I could cut expenses on my countertops or what, things like that, that if I needed to make an adjustment, I could make an adjustment.
Let's see. Chris did have, he says, I know this might not get asked, but do you know the zoning or will that be on the builder?
You should know it too. The builder should, but you should know it. Absolutely. And you should know what impact fees are, you should over time learn all of that. And if you've got a good builder, they're teaching you. The key to it also is getting that builder that's willing to teach you. You've got to have the perspective, and this goes back to an earlier conversation, that this is a partnership and I'm going to continue to use you when you're doing well. They're not afraid you're going to just learn from them, take all their subcontractors and then go do it yourself. They're going to teach you a whole lot less if they feel like all you're going to do is use them and then go do it yourself. My builder trusts me, and so I have all his contacts because he knows, and I've shared with him my perspective. I'm hiring him to continue to do this. And every now and then I might need a contract. Well, he's now willing to teach me the process, and I've learned every build still to this day. And I've built more than, I don't know how many properties now, 10, 12 properties in my life. Every one I'm still learning. But because he knows I'm loyal to him and we've built that relationship, he's teaching me more and more, and I'm just getting better at just understanding the little changes I'm making. It goes back to that original conversation. I'm wanting him to make his money because I want to keep using him, and I'm okay with that.
All right, we'll wrap things up soon. I do want to just let everyone know I'll be back tomorrow, same time with Joe Farrow, lending for entrepreneurs. A lot of people are giving me good feedback. Like Jim has reached out to him. They love the connection, how he kind of talks him through things, not trying to rush them. But yeah, reach out to Joe. Joe will be on tomorrow. I'll also be on. Lauren Elaine will be here. People don't remember she had an equestrian farm in Florida. She has sold that, and she is now building or working on a boutique hotel in Boise. So she's gonna go through that tomorrow and where she's at on that project. Jack saying I kicked them off from coming on my channel. No, Jack. Every time I ask you, you're telling me you have to sleep. You have to take a nap. But yeah, go check out Jack's channel. Also, him and Lynn have been doing live stream with Dylan, like a Midwestern kind of real estate talk. It was Sunday, I believe, this last one. So I'm not sure if that's the regular time they're going to be going. But let's wrap it up. Like I said, let's wrap it up with Lynn's question here. She says, Frank just released a video called Share Your Pain, Uche. How important do you think it is to have a partner that supports you in your business? And how often do you run into people that dread going home after work? Ooh.
Yeah, I've witnessed some of that. Gosh, no, my wife supports me, trusts me. Sometimes gives a little pushback, but I mean, it's good to have that support. It gives you wings when you've got that support. But I've worked with people that dreaded going home, and they would stay at the office as long as they could. And I thought, what a sad life that is.
Well, that's also because you're hiding from your wife. She thinks you're working all the time.
Wait a minute. My wife is on the other side of this wall. And by the way, I don't know if everybody knows this. We met working together at the bank, and we've worked together our entire lives together for 20. We're now married for 22, about to be 23 years, and we've always worked together.
Yeah, I'll keep my comments to myself.
I know.
I wrote down. Yeah, so Chris said you wrote down a lot of notes. Thanks. See you guys in Vegas. Yeah, I always invite you, Chris. Not you guys. Not you guys are always invited. I think I joke about it a lot, but I honestly think, and I'm not saying. I think it's super important if you can find someone on the same path. That definitely helps. And I think I was in my younger days. You're looking for different things, right? You're looking for different qualities, I guess, maybe if that's the way to put it. I think I think me separating from my son's mom was kind of a cheat code in a sense. It just it's easier to make decisions when you can make it by yourself. I think that definitely is part of it, and I do understand people that are in relationships that maybe the other half is doesn't have the same vision on this journey, and it definitely does make it difficult to invest or make certain decisions that might be a sacrifice at the time, right? When one person wants to take that trip and the other person wants to save the money for the next investment. So I definitely I kind of touch on it quite a bit, that I think that that setback, maybe separating from my son's mom or what, look at it, but it definitely made things easier for me to move forward and get on this path, because it was just me focusing on myself. So it is hard. I wouldn't take my advice on trying to, Brannon is someone that definitely I would reach, like you said, 23 years or whatnot, you said, but, find those people that are doing, like Frank. I think Frank is a great example. Someone to reach out to, get advice on that, on how to, have a spouse that's on board, and, try to figure out how to win together. Right. So,
And I would say, my wife, Mindy, is she's just trusting me. And, she still asks questions. Some of my videos are questions she's asked me. She's still trying to understand what's going on.
yeah, and then you find that spouse that you're gonna buy a helicopter for. So Charles,
Right.
helicopter McCune is
Right.
here. So, you find that one that you're willing to splurge on a helicopter for, right? And but he says, without my wife, I would be half blind.
Yeah.
So Carrie, yeah,
And I'm going to share some things at the meeting in February. I'm going to go through slides of several builds and what I learned off of every build. And some of them are L's. Some of the things that was a mistake. So I'm going to be real even in my presentation.
Yeah, Hyder says, "What's a partner? Loving the passport life," and you'll find that Lauren will be on tomorrow, and she is definitely enjoying that passport life. She's in Bali all the time. She's enjoying it. So, yeah, there is benefits to both sides. Fantastic Plumbing said, "Brannon is working."
My wife says I don't work.
Oh, just another win. Jack, he did post in school his other half, his prettier half. He said Cynthia, I believe, found a duplex.
I saw
She's
that.
gonna so right. So, but Cynthia and myself are both dominant personalities. What working together advice do you? What working together advice do you have? Brandon's gonna tell you hide and make like you're working. No, Brandon, but quickly then, do you have any advice for Jack working together?
Oh, man. Oh, I think what's made us work together, we have different strengths. We're not our personalities are very opposites. And I really appreciate what she brings to the organization. And I really appreciate the value she brings within this. And I'm more the visionary I can build it, but she helps me put it together. And she can, I'll come up with the vision, but then she puts the pieces together of how to get it done. So we've just developed a great partnership. And I've had to learn to really appreciate, just because it's different than what I bring does not mean it's less valuable. What she brings, and everybody would tell you, she brings the culture, the fun. She's, fun to be around, good practical joker, but she's also a diligent worker. I bring the big vision. I can sell. She can sell too. I'll be honest. She can sell, but it's just, we've learned to appreciate each other's strengths.
Yeah, so she's completely opposite than you, fun and a joker, and
Yeah. She's the fun one. That is absolutely for sure.
but yeah, well, this was a great episode. I think a lot of people got a lot of great information. Trade Better Heart says, Brannon, have you shared your faith journey and how has it shaped your financial path? Man, can you guys stop sending? I mean, I love the questions, but I'm trying to wrap things up here.
I
But
had
Brandon,
that.
this is kind of your passion too, right? So
I
I'd like
know.
you to answer this.
That's a long discussion. Let's
Oh
hold that for
man!
another one.
All right,
I appreciate the question
let me screenshot that so I can save it.
because I want to be thorough in that.
Okay. Oh crap! I gotta give you that much time. Oh look, Fantastic Plumbing is laughing. I don't know what he's laughing at, but he's laughing at something. But
Probably laughing at me for something.
everyone, like I said, thanks for tuning in. It's a great episode. Like I said, this is going to be our typical Tuesday regular session. I'll be back tomorrow, same time, 11 a.m. Eastern. Dion will be going live today, I believe 4 p.m. Pacific. And quickly, Vegas, you're putting together something Friday, right?
Yes. So those that are interested, we're going to do a Friday morning breakfast at Denny's by the Venetian Hotel. For those that can't stay up late, would rather are always getting up early. That's for us.
And you're treating, right? Is that what I heard?
Oh, I didn't know that.
And we'll just leave it with this. We'll have it with the Bears logo.
There
We'll
you
keep that
go.
out there. Bears going for their fifth win this week, fifth win in a row. But everyone, thanks for tuning in, and I'll see